So yes, so justice, as we discussed yesterday, is basically application of your, wisdom. So when you apply your wisdom, you come to, just conclusion. Okay. So wisdom has a very important role here. Okay. However, the problem that we noticed with them, with the Greek thinkers, starting with Plato and even Aristotle, was that their application of these first principles that they arrive at based on application of their wisdom, Sophia, um, does not lead them to proscribe institutions like slavery. Okay. So when Aristotle, as I told you guys yesterday, there are two different kinds of justice that he talks about: universal justice on the one hand and particular justice on the other. So that universal justice is something, according to them, will be same everywhere, because you know of it based on Sophia. Okay. And Sophia gives you access to universal or eternal, ideas. Okay. Ideas, things, whatever. But then if that is universal, then how are they able to justify slavery in the light of these ideas of universal justice? So does that mean that universal justice allow slavery, or at least does not prescribe? If that is the case, then how is it universal? So if if the idea that they were talking about was truly universal, then it should be acceptable at all point of time at different places. But that's not the case. Today we do not accept the institution of slavery, nor do we accept subjugation of women or minors by men. So so here's the hypocrisy, as I said. Although he was talking about universal justice, okay, maybe conceptually he was correct, but then in practice they were not really following it. So that's universal justice. On the other hand, they had something called, particular justice. Now, particular justice will vary from place to place. Okay, particular justice would differ from place to place, because the factors that determine particular justice also vary from place to place. So hence, it will vary from different times, according to different times and different places. Okay. So particular justice was again subdivided into two different kinds. One was distributive justice, and the other one was rectificatory justice. Now, the part that is that deals with rectificatory justice is something that you also find in Robert Nozick's idea of historical justice. Okay, you will find that there. But anyway, what does Aristotle say about these two different, kinds of justice? So his idea of distributive justice is definitely influenced by the idea of teleology that they had developed. Okay, that there is a natural order out there, natural hierarchical order of things, and everyone has their deserved place. Okay, so where do you belong? Where you deserve to belong. So if someone asks you, where do I belong? You will say, where you deserve to belong. So where do I deserve to belong? So that will depend on the kind of merits that I have. So I told you guys earlier that Aristotle's idea of distributive justice, is can be said to be just like the idea of meritocracy as we have today. Okay, but although the idea of merit has changed over a period of time. Okay, so in Aristotle's time, certain examples have been given. Okay, which strata do you belong? So if you have wealth, then you belong in the oligarchy. If you're excellent, then you belong in the autocracy. Then if you're not freeborn, okay, then you are not entitled to all the rights of a citizen. But if you are of free birth, then you belong in a democracy, and then that comes with associated rights. So these are the idea of distributive justice that he had conceptualized. So because time does not permit, I will not go any further than that, but I will just give you an example of what he essentially means. Okay, so if you guys have studied Amartya Sen's idea of justice, there he talks about three brothers, and who deserves to get a flute. Okay, so so three brothers are there. I don't remember the exact name, so I'll say that three brothers were A, B, C, Okay, so three brothers lay claim to the flute, and all three have different reasons for laying different claims. Okay, what are those three? Those three are essentially that the first brother says, okay, uh, that I'm poor, okay, so I deserve to get the flute, okay, because I have nothing else. I deserve to get the flute, okay. So his justification for the flute is that he's poor. The second brother says that, well, uh, I have the capacity of playing flute. I have the merit of being able to play flute. It's in my possession, that in my ownership, that it will realize its full potential. Because the best sound will be produced by me. And then the third brother says that, well, I'm the one who made it. Okay, I'm the one who made it. So it belongs to me. So out of these three, which one do you think would be the Aristotelian, approach? Who do you think Aristotle would say the flute belongs to? Yes, second one. Anyone else? The second one. Okay. So the second one, why? Yeah. So what's the purpose here? Okay, that's the reason. So that's excellent. So it's essentially, it's not really about how whether he knows to play the flute. It's about that it's in his playing the flute. The flute reaches its maximum, what should I say, not potential. I mean, realizes what it's best capable of, that is producing the sound. So that potential realizes in the hands of this person. So person B deserves it. So that's the teleological justification. Some might say that, okay, you know he, some might say that, okay, it's this person B who plays it the best, and hence it gives pleasure to others. Okay, it gives maximum pleasure to others. But if your reasoning is of that sort, that is also consequentialist, but that is not the approach, the teleological approach, as Aristotle would say. Okay, that will be more of a utilitarian sort of reasoning. So I would like to make that clear here. So anyway, you guys are clear with this idea of distributive justice. Okay, so even modern ideas of meritocracy, as we say, okay, many say that, okay, reservation is not okay. Why? Because, say, for example, in educational institutions, one with a lesser rank might get admission in a good university. So that's not okay for many. So why is it not okay? One will say that because he or she does not deserve it. Why he or she doesn't deserve it? Well, one would say that they do not have the merit. Well, rather they would not say that they do not have merit. One might say that there are more meritorious people, okay, out there. So if your reasoning is of that sort, okay, then you are employing the teleological reasoning. Okay, is it clear? Is this clear? Huh? Pranav, you have to say something. Okay, then and here's the problem that arises. Okay, yes, yes, I'm recording it. Don't worry, it's being recorded while I speak. So yes, there are other situations. There might come a situation where the distribution, okay, does not happen properly. Okay, someone gets things that he or she does not deserve. So maybe through force, fraud, coercion, whatever. Okay, what are we going to do? So we will then restore the order, isn't it? In the sense that we will give things to those who rightfully deserve it. Okay. So the second aspect of particular justice, as Aristotle talks about, is rectificatory justice. So rectificatory justice essentially rectifies, you know, mm, what goes wrong in the distributive justice. Okay, so that's your rectificatory justice. In fact, the modern legal systems as it exists functions based on that principle of rectificatory justice. Whether it starts with the first principle or not, but it definitely has this understanding that there is a order, and if the order is broken, so it could be the legal order. If that is broken, then it will be fixed using rectificatory justice. So later on, when we study Hofeldt in the next semester, you will see that he talks about your primary rights, and what happens when primary rights are broken. Then you have secondary rights that come into existence. So that I can roughly equate with that of rectificatory justice as was conceptualized by Aristotle. So with that, we come to the conclusion of Aristotle's or the Greek, natural law school. So we start with what Greek natural law is essentially all about, and we discussed about what Plato had to, what teleology is. Then what is the influence of this idea of teleology in the works of both Plato as well as that of Aristotle? We see certain differences in how Plato understood the state ought to function, in which a just state can be achieved, and then we saw how Aristotle disagreed with some of the aspects of Plato's work and ultimately conceptualizes his own idea of natural law and justice. So that's it. That's the end of natural law from the Greek philosophy perspective. So if you guys have any confusion, clarification that you seek as of now, you guys can ask me here. If it is clear, you guys can say yes. If it is not, then you guys can ask me. Okay. Okay then. So so I'm assuming that it's clear to all of you. Okay. So the thing is, you have a natural law school that emerged or at least started during this period. Okay, that is during the Greek period, culminating in the works of Aristotle. Now the thing is, we identified what the problems are with natural law as it emerged. Okay, so even though these philosophers were talking about universality of natural law, that natural law is higher than all other laws. Okay, but then we see that when it comes to applying that, they never criticized the laws of their police. Okay, and sometimes they equated the laws of the police with that of natural law, leading to the conclusion that even when the laws of the police were discriminatory against women, against inferiors, okay, against non-citizens, against freemen, okay, against the slaves, okay, except for citizens, okay, and even among citizens there were hierarchies, okay. So their idea of natural law, even when it claimed to universality, saw no problems with all that. Okay, the open manifest discrimination didn't go against their idea of natural law. So some sort of improvement happened subsequently. So some sort of criticisms had already started, as we discussed. If you know, the sophists had already posed a challenge. Okay, they had already said that what you are considered, calling universal is not really universal. But then subsequently, another philosophical school had emerged, and it is popular even now. Okay, it's very popular even now. It's the philosophy of Stoicism. Okay, Stoicism. You guys must have heard about. Okay, even if you haven't heard about Stoicism, you know the meaning of the word Stoic. Okay, example of that quite often, would be the MS Dhoni as a captain. Okay, who does not respond to pleasure or pain, in the sense that even when he is winning a match, he doesn't show much excitement, nor does he show any emotion when the match is lost. Okay, So silly example. What I'm saying is that Stoicism is basically a kind of philosophy that believes in indifference, okay, indifference to pain and pleasure. Okay, so that's your. Just a second. Class, class. Anyway, yes, we were talking about Stoicism. Now, this idea of natural law that emerged among the Greeks, okay, was ultimately received by the Romans, okay. And how did the Romans receive it? It was received through this school, okay, this new school of philosophy, okay, that is the Stoicism, that is Stoicism, okay. Now, who are Stoics? Stoics are philosophers, okay, who learned from some of the Greek philosophers, okay, and then they improved upon it, okay. So yes, Zeno, who is the father of Stoicism, okay, he learned about Aristotle and his work, okay, and many other, Stoics were also influenced by another philosophical approach known as cynicism. Okay, if you have heard about Diogenes, okay, and his crazy ways. So they were the first ones who talked about austerity and all that. Okay, giving up worldly pleasures and focusing only on improving your inner self. So morally, moral, the importance of achieving moral excellence. These are some of the things that the cynics focused on, and they're basically Greek philosophers. Now, so these philosophers had an impact on how Stoicism had evolved. So Stoic philosophers drew their inspiration on the previous philosophical developments that had happened. Now, I just told you that Stoicism, as a separate school of philosophy, was initiated by this famous philosopher by the name Zeno. Now, there are two Zenos, so don't get confused, okay? If some of you come from the science background, so you might have heard of one Zeno. They're like, 1 centuries apart, so it's very easy for one to get confused. So there are two Zenos, okay? One is Zeno of Ilia, and the other one is Zeno of Citium. Now, Zeno of Ilia is the one that we know for all the paradox, okay? So, the one he basically drew his inspiration from Parmenides, okay, another Greek philosopher who believed that the world does not change. It is a box universe, static universe. There is no change. So, and then based on that, Zeno comes up with that paradox. Zeno of Ilia, not Citium. Okay, Zeno of Ilia comes up with that idea of how can we cover distance. Okay, so I will not go into that, and I easily get distracted. So that's another Zeno, okay. And now there is another Zeno that comes almost a century later, okay. That's Zeno of Citium, okay. Now Zeno of Citium is a very interesting character, okay. Why? In the sense that he was a merchant, okay. So while he was traveling between two cities, there was a shipwreck, okay, and he lost his ship and all the valuables that he had, okay. And then he was distraught, so he somehow reached Athens, okay. And there he started in the Athenian libraries he started studying the Greek philosophers, various Athenian philosophers, okay. So Socrates, Crates, and etc., etc. So there he basically see philosophers quite often they learn or come up with their philosophical ideas when they suffer, okay. Now the predicament for human is that how do I overcome suffering, okay, how do I overcome suffering? There is no control that I have over the physical world. There's nothing that I can do in this physical world that can prevent suffering, but there is something that I can do inside, okay, to lessen the suffering or prevent the suffering. So So that's the idea of indifference, that you may build an empire, that empire may collapse. Okay, you may build a building, nice building, but then tomorrow maybe there is a earthquake, and then everything is like razed to the ground. So yes, that affects us, but Stoicism essentially says that those are things that we do not have control over, but what we have control over is our reason, is our emotion. So this is their idea. Okay, so essentially Stoicism is about indifference to both pain as well as pleasure. So you now understand why Zeno might have come up with this idea, that about indifference to pain and pleasure. So there is a quotation, okay, something ascribed to him. Okay, he had supposedly said that, now that I have suffered shipwreck, I am on a good journey. Okay, so see how this is a way of consoling yourself. Okay, so that's the importance of Stoicism. I think in the modern materialistic world, when there is cutthroat competition, there is always someone making more money than you. There is always someone who has a bigger house than you, and you may suddenly never know. Everything's going on fine, and tomorrow someone that you love so much dies from COVID-19 or some other things. Okay, in those trying times, okay, I think Stoicism is probably one of the most important philosophical work that can help you. So another very important, there are many philosophers, okay, Stoic philosophers. The most important ones, would be, let's start with Zeno of Citium. Then you have Cicero. Then you have Chrysippus. And then you have Seneca. Then you have Epictetus. And then one of the most important ones is Marcus Aurelius. Now, you guys probably, if you haven't, read the history, then even then there is a high possibility that you know about Marcus Aurelius. If you have watched the movie Gladiator, released in 2000 by Ridley Scott, okay, directed by Ridley Scott, that movie was the old emperor who was killed by his son Commodus in the movie, although that is historically, inaccurate. That's Marcus or Aurelius. So historically, he existed. He was one of the 5, best emperors of Rome. Okay, one of the 5, excellent Roman emperors. He was the last, of them. And after that, Commodus came to power, and then he had no interest in Stoic philosophy. So I think after that, we do not see major development in Stoic philosophy. So anyway, I get carried away. Anyway, so these are the major Stoic thinkers. Okay, now where did this term Stoicism come from? So Zeno, once he, after that shipwreck, started studying, philosophy, Athenian philosophy in Athens. Okay, he started teaching them at a place called Stoa Poikile. Okay, Stoa Poikile. So that was near the Agora of Athens. Okay, Stoa Poikile essentially means a painted porch. Okay, if you just Google, you will see the structure. Okay, so there he started, teaching. So from that word, subsequently, emerged the word called Stoicism. So while Zeno was teaching, there was no such word used for this kind of philosophy. It was known as Zenoicism, okay, because it emerged with Zeno. So remember, it's Zeno of Citium, not Zeno of Ilia. So yes, so it's his philosophy, okay, the approach to philosophy that started with Zeno is known as, was subsequently known as Stoicism, okay. Now, what does Zeno say about, and what does he say that, concerns us? Does he say anything about natural law? Of course he says, okay. So he preached that reason is natural to human mind, and that reason, unless corrupted by passion, accords with natural order of the world. So you see, there are some similarities and some dissimilarities with the Greek philosophers. Okay, what is that? You see that there is a shift from the phenomenal world that the Greeks focused on to the nominal world that the Stoics focused on. Now, I'm using again different words. Okay, what do they mean? So the phenomenal world was basically what the Greeks focused on, the world that you can perceive. Okay, the world that you can perceive. Okay, whereas for the Stoics, they're talking about certain idea of reason, that you can, that you can do even in the absence of your perception. So ideas that are possible even in the absence of perception. But they're not saying that perceptions are not important, but the idea of reason that they're talking about, that idea of reason is independent of that perception. Okay, so here's the shift that we see from the uh, mm, Greek philosophers to the, Zeno was also like there only, but through Stoicism and ultimately during the Romanistic times, this is the shift that we notice. Okay, so what does he say? He says that reason is natural to human mind. Okay, so it's in human nature that they're reasonable. Okay, whether we agree on it or not is a different thing, but then it is there. Even when some of us disagree, we can still say that there is a human nature. Okay, there is a human nature, and that cannot be denied. Okay. Mm. So for example, if I ask you this serious question, okay, so is it okay to rape someone? Can you answer? Is it okay to rape someone? Is there anyone who thinks that yes, it's fine to rape someone? But there might be those who disagree with you. Okay, they might say that it's okay to rape. Okay, so why am I getting so few no's here? I thought I'll just get a barrage of no's here. Huh? I have to prod you into saying that, okay, no. If there is anyone who wants to say yes, don't fear. You can say yes, but I will ask you other questions. Okay. So it's good that no one said yes. Okay. So what leads us to this conclusion? Why do you think that rape is not okay? So I will anyway. I'm not going for specific response. So what one would say if one was reasoning from this, their perspective, from this Stoics perspective, they will say that okay, I'll come to human dignity later on. Yes, dignity is very important. The idea of equality, along with human dignity, also the idea of equality is important. Okay, here. So anyway, the idea is that you know that this is something that is wrong. You ought not to harm someone. Okay, harm one's dignity for in this particular case. Okay, apart from physical harm. So yes, you know from within that it is not okay to harm or harm someone in their body or in their dignity. Yes, you have to say something, Sumit. Mm-hmm. 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 Yes, so that's essentially the idea I was coming to. Okay, so your reason tells you. So Stoics will tell you that your reason tells you that you ought not to rape someone. Got the idea? So what else do they say? Okay, so Zeno says that reason is natural to the human mind. That reason, unless corrupted by passion, okay, accords with the natural order of the world. Okay, so what corrupts you here? If anyone said that it's okay to rape someone, you are not being reasonable. Okay, you are being passionate in a very negative sense of the term, because there are positive sense in which you can use the word passion. So it essentially means that you are not in control of your emotions, of your desires, it could be sexual desire or it could be other sort of desire. You're not in control of it. Okay. So how do you arrive at what is, natural law? You can arrive it only by applying pure reason. Okay. Your reason without the corrupting influence of your passion. Okay. So whether I ought to steal, something that belongs to someone which is unguarded, your reason would tell you that you ought not to. Okay. Um, but your passion might say that, okay, your desire, your greed, whatever you say, might say that, okay, yes, no one's noticing, so I can take it. But natural law would say, as you know, reason in the absence of passion would say that you ought not to steal it. Okay. So I hope you understood what Zeno was essentially alluding to here. Okay. So he said that passion gets in the way of reason. Quite often, passion, in the negative sense of the term, okay, gets in the way of reason, and hence, to discover natural law through reason, persons must subdue their passions and become sage. So, to be able to arrive at a just consequence, to know what is right and wrong, you have to be able to apply reason uncorrupted by passion. Now, I think our time is almost up, but before I go, I want to say that you see that this philosophy emerged around 4th and 3rd century BCE. Okay. Now, another, uh, contemporary of their time also said something similar. Okay, indifference to pain and pleasure. And he thought of something called nirvana. Who's that? Nirvana. Who's that? Gautam Buddha. Okay. So, but Gautam Buddha precedes them by almost, two centuries. So you see all these ideas emerged. Okay. So it's possible that ideas have moved from one place to the other, and accordingly, So yes, this is something that you guys can look into. It's a good research that one can do if one is interested in this. That, okay, what is the relation between Stoicism and Buddha's idea of nirvana? Okay. So with that, I would like to end our discussion today, and tomorrow we will continue. Not, I think, on Monday we will complete this Romanistic natural law.